Hello there, my name is Lewis John and welcome to the Toolroom Academy. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to create a default live set within Ableton Live so that when you start producing music every day, you haven't got to do the same things over and over again. One thing that people always say to me coming in is they say, I like starting a track, but I just get so bogged down in it all. I get so bored. I have to do too much admin. I get it. I work on music every day in my life. And if I had to make all these decisions on projects before I even hit the mix down stage every time, I would never get anything done. That's why I have my default template. This is a list of tracks already preset with EQs, filters, maybe compressors. All my returns are all done, which means when I open up a blank project, I can drop stems in or start from scratch and everything's already sort of ready to go, without having to open an EQ 25 times and a compressor 100 times and blah, blah, blah. When you're done, your project should look like this. So let's get straight into it. Okay, when we open up Ableton, we are met with this. 2 MIDI tracks, 2 audio tracks, 2 returns, and a main master channel. All of which are completely empty, no devices on them at all. So the first thing I'm going to do is create my new default audio and MIDI channels. So what do I normally have on all of my channels? Well, basic EQ for starters. I can definitely put that on there. So I'm just going to put a little roll off at 20 hertz there, just because you're never going to need anything that low. And if you want to, you can also have a roll off at the top as well, just to take all the super harsh highs out as well. There we go. So around like 19k. That's fine. Okay. So that's there and ready to go. Next up, I'm not going to put compression on there just because I feel like if you have compression on everything, you're going to use compression on everything. And not necessarily everything needs compression on it in all of our projects, especially some of the samples I've got. They definitely don't need any more compression. So the next thing I'm going to include is going to be a low pass filter. So let's open up our auto filter and I'm going to make sure that's maxed out, not actually doing anything. I find that having the resonance set to about 24% stops it from cutting off the really harsh highs or rolling off any high frequencies that it shouldn't be doing. And I'm going to turn that off because I don't want to filter on everything. I want to be able to turn it on without looking for it in my browser in the middle of a project, but that is absolutely fine. I'm also going to add another filter. I'm going to use my kick drum remover. This is a preset. This is a preset for the auto filter in Ableton that I've got that just allows me to, take all those low frequencies off either my kick or my bass in breakdowns. And it's just something I can flick on and off with automation throughout each track. So these are things I add all the time. And if I'm working with 2 or 3 clients a day, I don't want to be doing all these parts on every single channel, on every single project every time. They should just launch with new audio tracks. I'm pretty happy with that. Let me just look at my favorite effects and see if there's anything else I can add. I will add a utility. Sometimes I want to automate gain, so I'm going to put that at the end there. Or that can go at the start or the end, depending on what you want to do. I'm happy to move these things around in my project, but if they're already on there, that's happy days. That's perfect. I'm also going to color code this red, just because the first few things I add to my project are always red, so because they're my drums. So that can now be audio channel. I'm going to right click. This is the most important part of how to do this. Put on whatever you use. This is just an example of what I use. Feel free to copy me. You might want to add a compressor. You might want to add reverbs, delays, whatever. This is a good starting point. That's not going to hinder me that I'm going to have to delete a bunch of stuff every time. But it's a nice blank canvas. In fact, what I'll do is I'll turn the kick drum remover off. Just leave my EQ and my utility on. Let's right click and I am going to save as default audio track. Do you want to? Or this one already exists. That's fine. Let me yes. Now when I go Command T, my next audio track instantly comes up with all those things I added at those settings. So all these audio tracks now come with all these devices added on. Next up is our MIDI track. So I'm going to add all those things I've just added again to my MIDI track because why not? Happy days. And I can save that as my default MIDI track. Perfect. Now if I add new MIDI tracks, you'll see they all show up again. Okay, that's already going to have saved us a load of time in our sessions. Now we want to move on to actually creating our default Ableton template, which is going to include a load of audio tracks and a load of MIDI tracks. So let's start by doing our drum group. So let's go and create, we've got one MIDI track there, one audio track. Let's create a few audio tracks and a few MIDI tracks. 4 and 4, I think that's fair enough. Let's highlight all these and Command G to group them. And I'm going to make them all red because my drums are always red. And then let's name this. So we've got drum group or drum bus, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to call it drum group because I'm in Ableton and I use groups. The next thing I'm probably going to do is take one MIDI track and one audio track and create a group within a group and call this my kick group. And then I'm going to take all these MIDI tracks, there's 3 there, and these audio tracks, 3 and 3, I think it's a nice number there, and call this my drum, let's go top groups. Top group. Okay. Now from here, you've sort of got creative freedom. If you want to get really rigid with it, what we can do is we could call this open hat. We could call this snare. Let's call this 909. Or no, let's actually call this closed hat. Okay, and then we can just call this audio loop. And we could probably just duplicate that. So these are all just called audio loop. Now then, that's all looking pretty nice. Now let's also just think about what we're doing here. We could, because we know this is our open hat, if you're making house music like I am, I know my open hi-hat is probably going to be like that. So I can automatically save these to go across there. Am I going to have an open hi-hat through here? Probably. Now let's just leave that there. My kick group, the same thing, MIDI. So on my MIDI clip, I could just go bang, 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 bang. Put them in where they would go, which is on 4th notes. Get that across there. So we've got the first 32 bars of kick and hi-hat. All I'd have to do now is select a sample from the browser, and we're already in. I can mute those for now as well. I can turn those off by clicking 0 and have them sort of muted. Let's just leave them in for the sake of argument because there's no MIDI attached to them. Again, snare drum, 2 and 4. That can go there. Snare or clap. Now, when I just add my sounds, a hi-hat, kick, and snare in any project, whatever kicks I like, if I'm dragging them into these things, I'm saving myself a load of time in the long run. So, closed hi-hat. Again, let's now drag that out and get 16th notes on the go. Let's drag that out. Go 16ths. Boom. And then drag my 16ths across. Okay, cool. We've got a basic drum pattern there already. The next thing I want to do is probably set up my groove pool. This is to add swing to my drums. I'm not going to use 66% swing on anything, ever, really. That's a lot of swing. So I'm actually going to set my groove pool to be automatically at 57. No, 59? 50. Let's go 57. It seems like a nice safe number. Cool. So now all my MIDI should automatically snap to that groove. And to double check, if it hasn't, which it hasn't done, we can set all these MIDI clips here to be set to our groove. Awesome. Next, let's close these groups down. We have got a nice preset drum bus there, ready and raring to go. For my next trick, I'm going to have basses. Now, there's a few ways I might have basses on the go. I might have 2 MIDI tracks and 2 audio tracks, just in case I start messing around with audio loops. Let's go Command G and group this. And again, I'm going to put this in brown. I don't know why I always have my bass in brown. Bass group. And then what we might do is we might have a respace. Definitely have our sub. Let's create a new MIDI track as well, just for Serum. And then 2 audio channels for audio lines of bass. So let's find those presets. A nice respace. I've got a nice respace in Serum. Serum. There we go. Let's just search for one. That one. Oop. Nope. Nope. That'll do. There's our respace. Awesome. Next up is our sub. There's a great one built into Ableton, which is just the basic sub sign in 12. It used to be called the hip hop sub in the earlier versions of Ableton, but now it's called that. So if you lost it like I did for a while, that's where it went. So that can go on there. We've got a sub bass, a respace, and then next we'll probably just go into like Serum and just have that open. You can use any plugin for this. I know I get a load of my basses from Serum. That's fine. If you use outboard gear, like you can see I've got like the Moog over there, I could now have this set up to be the correct input for my Moog, and then I can just record straight in there, and then I have one for just dropping audio loops in. But that is each to your own. If you're not using any hardware, you've just got 2 audio channels there to be able to drop bass loops in from Splice or Loop Cloud or wherever you get your loops from. So, bass and drums are done. Now then, let's open up the next thing to do, which is going to be to just create a few more MIDI channels and a few more audio channels. We know the drill. That'll do. I'm just going to now group all these. I turn these blue. I don't know why I've always just had my instruments in blue. If you want to be specific, basically copy and paste what you've done with the bass group here. So you might open up a few Serums, a few, I don't know, Massives, some Ableton stuff you've got, whatever. Just have some MIDI on the go and some audio on the go. The one other thing I would do outside of this group is I would now create another audio track in the same channel, which I tend to stick above this group. And this is going to have a piano on it. Why is it got a piano on it, I hear you ask? Just because the piano is a great sound to have, to just be able to work out what key things are in. It's just good to be able to turn a channel on and just be able to go and work out your scales and everything and just hear things correctly. So I'm going to have this as my piano, and that's outside of my instrument group. If I actually do end up putting that piano in the track, it will end up in my instrument group because it'll need to be processed along with all the rest of the instruments in the project. However, that's fine for now. That is sort of my go-to channel to be able to play things out and test out melodies and stuff with a nice vanilla piano sound. Next up, effects. Generally speaking, you're probably just going to need a bunch of audio channels. However, I caveat that by putting one MIDI channel at the top of mine. Let's group them. I put my effects in white because the majority of it is white noise. It's almost like a pun. Here we go. So, white noise. Let's call this effects. Or let's rename that to instruments as well. Nice. And then what I tend to do is I put a little tip for you here. I tend to put the percussion core kit into the one MIDI track because I like to use, sometimes, you know, if I'm making a disco track, need I say more? Also this one, they come in handy to have to just layer those crashes. We will do a video at some point on the secret ways in which we can add impact and build-ups to a track. But for now, let's just leave that there. And all these audio tracks can pretty much stay where they are because they're just going to end up being one-shots from sample packs, I imagine. So that's cool. We've got our effects group. If you really wanted to, now you could create a vocal group. This is where you can really delve in. And if you've got a vocal chain, like I've got a vocal chain that I used on Liv East's EP that I tend to just use on everyone's, I could indeed remove all this from my default, take Liv East's vocal chain devices, drop that on there, create a few of them. Takes a little bit takes a little bit longer to load because there's so much stuff on there. And now I've got 4 channels with my vocal chain on, ready to go if I ever need to lay down some vocals. Also, if you do want to see a video on how to do a nice vocal chain, hit the like button down below, leave us a comment, let us know what you want us to be doing. I actually do think we will do a video on how to process vocals. I know there's some really cool tips and tricks on there to get your vocals sounding sweet. So, moving forward, we have got all of our groups, which if we spread out already looks like a pretty beefy project waiting to be filled up with musical bliss and ideas. There's all our effects, there's all our vocal chains, and we've already hit 41 channels. If you can aim to hit that 41 channel mark, odds are that the track is going to sound pretty full. But we're not done yet. I want to add some nice admin-y channels. So either the top or the bottom. I'll probably add it to the top. Let's create 4 new audio channels. And actually, these ones are going to have just... yeah, that's fine. They can all stay like that. This one is going to be my reference track. I'm going to set my output to the external out 1 and 2, just so it doesn't go through all my master bus, essentially. But my reference track is going to go there. I'm going to set this as grey, just because it's sort of like admin. So that's going to be my reference track. The next thing I'm going to add is probably going to be Splice Bridge on a MIDI track. Splice Bridge essentially allows me to sample noises within Splice within the project at the right tempo. It sort of quantizes the samples in Splice to match your project. It's a really handy tool, and it's nice to have open at all times at the top of the project. The next thing I'm going to add is probably just a couple of channels here. 3 audio channels, for example. And then I'm going to call this unused. This is a really useful thing to have to be able to just throw ideas in. You might have had this before. You write a really cool melody and you're like, I love this, but it doesn't suit this track. Let's drag that into the unused part of the project so that I can always pull from those ideas later on without it cluttering up my actual project. What did I just delete? There we go. Cool. Awesome. So the top half of our project is looking pretty good. Now let's just sort out these returns. Now return effects are really important for your mix, essentially, and for your CPU usage. If you've got an older laptop, sending all of your tracks to a reverb send rather than slamming a reverb channel onto every single thing is a way better, a more uniform way of creating depth and roominess to a mix. So what we're going to do is probably just have 3 different reverbs. Oh, 1 second. Let's go Option Command T. There's 3, and then let's have 3 delays. Simply just because it looks nice and symmetrical on the mixer, and looks symmetrical there as well. You know, so you know the top row are going to be your reverbs, and the bottom row are going to be your delays. So let's start with, I'm going to put in my things here. I use Valhalla Vintage Verb a lot. And I've created my own drum preset here. This is essentially going to be my drum bus reverb. But what it actually is for anything short and plucky. It's like a nice short chamber reverb I've got on that. So that's going to be my first one. I'm going to call it drum verb down the bottom. The next one is probably going to be a plate. You can't go wrong with a plate reverb. And for those of you that don't have plugins, let's just find a nice plate reverb within Ableton. Large plate. There we go. Oh, maybe not. Let's try vocal plate hall. Nice. So that's going to go in there. And then this one's just going to be a mental. Maybe I'll use shimmer. Shimmer reverb. Shimmer reverb's really cool. It adds an octave to the reverb. So the large octave shimmer is in Ableton. It can really make your sounds a lot brighter as well. Let's set that to 12 semitones up. And essentially what it does is it just adds a load of higher frequencies to those sounds. A bit of sparkle. That's what we want. Next up, delay. I'm just going to use H delay. I'm going to create a 16th. Delay, sort of like a slapback. Not too precious about how this sounds for the sake of this. We can probably use presets in here. So let's go for slapback, slap delay. Nice. That's a insert though. Make sure the analog is turned off because it only adds noise. It's grim. So that's going to be slapback. Next up, we're going to go for the 1/8, and it's going to be ping ponged. This is just something you hear all the time. So that is literally that, just with the ping pong button on, which is going to let it bounce left to right at a really nice sort of. You know, if you've used the DJM 900, it's on like the 3/4 note setting, that sort of like da 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 da. That's essentially what we're going for there. And then the last one, I'm thinking let's just use another plugin for the sake of argument. Echo Boy's really good, and let's maybe go for like a dry wet needs to be all the way up. Let's go for like a 4th note feedback up. and then get rid of some highs and get rid of some lows. Yeah, that looks all right to me. I just set that to 1/4. Cool. Now, we've got pretty much everything we need. Let's set all them to grey. Nice. Cool. And then I'm going to set my master to like a darker grey. Why not? I just find that they're all sort of like tools. So I don't put them in creative colours because they feel more like tool channels rather than like creative channels. A few more things I'm going to do. Next up is I'm going to put a limiter on the master channel. This is essential, really. It doesn't even have to be doing anything. It just has to sort of be maxed out at minus 0.3 because that's the loudest you're ever going to get. You can leave the threshold where it is. However, if I was to throw something in there, my speakers were turned all the way up. At least I know that they're not going to absolutely demolish my speakers because I've got a limiter on there. So it'll just compress the noise. So it's fine. Pull that back as far as you want. Remember that it's on. I'm using a third-party one. You can use the Ableton one. Only thing I would say is the FabFilter Pro L2, which is a fabulous limiter, industry standard limiter that I use on my final masters all the time. But it adds so much input delay that you'll never be able to play the piano. I'm not going to show you on this. I'll just have to take my word for it. Be wary of using these plugins on your master chain before you start producing, because if they're adding loads of input delay, then you're never going to be able to play anything in, and it's going to get really annoying really quick. I'm going to use the L1 low latency limiter from Waves. There's a nice third-party one, very simple to use. Take the release down a bit, that's fine. So my master chain is just that for now. Again, I might throw a utility on there as well, because I know most of my master chains start with a utility. You know, might put my bass in mono. I'm not going to do that, but get jiggy with it. Do what you want. It is yours to add to this so far. The only other thing I might add are my waypoints, so my locators, just so I can move them around if I want to. So I would have like breakdown for starters there. Let's put a drop there. Drop 1. Maybe I'll just write there like build, and then I would probably go 32 bars. Yep, there, nice. Add breakdown, and then say, you know, in this track that I'm doing, that the second breakdown is 24 bars. Yeah, I'm checking the bar length down the bottom here, by the way, when I actually highlight the left. It's, see down the bottom left, it says length 24 bars. So then I would say, you know, put the drop there, and then I could go across for 32 bars, which is there. Outro, another 32 bars. Nice. Add locator there, and that is the end of our track in theory. So let's go out. Cool. Now what I could do with this is I could take that drum track and I could sort of really get them going. So I mean, all those things I just put in, the open hi-hat, the snare, the everything else, they're definitely going to be there, you know. And that is ready and raring to go and ready to add to. I think that is bang on, actually. Next thing, and the final most important thing we're going to do, is we are going to go File, and we are going to Save Live Set as Template. And I'm going to say Toolroom Academy Template. Awesome. So that's it. That is our Ableton template done and dusted. I'm going to leave a link to that the template down below in the description for you to download. I've already done the work for you. If you haven't got some of the plugins in there, I'm sorry. I know they're third-party ones. They are pretty readily available, and a lot of them are on sale quite often. So you should be fine, and I'm sure following these steps and a basic understanding of the built-in Ableton plugins, you can go in and adapt from my template. That's it for now from me. Hopefully this video has helped you out. I'm telling you, for the next year, having a default template preset Ableton project will save you absolutely hours, and will save the decision-making part of your brain for the actual creative decisions of making music. Hopefully this has been helpful. My name is Lewis John. Make sure you follow the Toolroom Academy and hit us up on all the socials. Let us know what you want us to cover next. See you in the next one.